Welcome to the Offshoot. My name is Sean Nelson, and I'm your host. And today we have a guest, Justin Matherson, a young entrepreneur who's going to talk to us about what does it mean to be a protected class of people in this country. So, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in the military. My father was in the Air Force, and growing up, I'm the oldest of seven. I have a twin brother, and we're both the oldest of seven. So growing up, as far as money goes, we didn't really have a lot of excess money or money to spend freely per se. So my brother and I started real early mowing lawns, knocking on doors, and that's where my entrepreneurship started. That's where I learned a lot about rejection, a lot about my approach, a lot about tempo, tone, and how to actually build a business, build a small business. So that's where it started. We lived everywhere from Montana to Myrtle Beach, Santa Barbara, California, Louisiana, and then I finally landed in Irmo, South Carolina before I went to college in Charleston, South Carolina. Graduated there and worked with Turner Construction for 5 years. And then from there, I started my own general contracting company and have been doing mainly audio-visual ever since then.
So you have a lot of credibility when it comes to entrepreneurship and as well as what it's like to work around this country on the East Coast and the West Coast.
Oh, yeah, I understand the ups and downs. I understand the struggles. I understand financing. I understand the planning part of it. I understand the stuff that you're told in school versus what you actually need to know. I understand what we don't know about money.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the benefits that my friends who are entrepreneurs have that we don't have. I understand a lot of things that don't get talked about that really we need to start to come together and posture ourselves so we can take care of the next generations that are coming.
So what are some of those things we don't talk about, specifically as it relates to being a young black man in this country? Or is it in that area that things that you guys don't talk about?
Well, I think as far as a black community,
mm-hmm.
the generation above us,
okay.
They weren't aware financially of how to position themselves to kind of help us out.
Is
right?
that
so
Gen
we're just
X
now
and
learning.
Baby boomers, or is it just a...
Well, I think every generation ahead of us, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's more to this than just, I'm not going to say it's their fault per se, because you
okay.
have to look at the whole history, right?
Okay.
So if it's just like playing Monopoly. So if you play Monopoly
yeah.
and you give somebody 300 rounds around the table
yeah.
before you,
yeah.
you'll never catch up.
So
that's basically.
So do you think that the generations before you, like my generation, Gen X, and the baby boomers, that we didn't do enough to ensure the protection of young black people in this country?
I feel like you didn't have enough to do enough. Does that make sense? So it's not like you had it and then blew it. I don't think you ever had a shot. So I think that, it's just like 2 generations ago going to college.
Yeah.
I wish I could go to college. I want my kids to go to college.
Yeah.
Well, now when my kids, it's time for them to go to college,
yeah.
that probably might not be the good thing. That might not be the thing to do. It may be the thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we need to be
options.
We have to be ahead of it. We can't be following what's working or worked for the generation ahead of us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or
it does. Okay, so then what would you say that my generation could have done to ensure the protection for you so that you would have a more seamless career in entrepreneurship?
I think sometimes that's a good question. I think that one thing we could have done that the generation ahead could have done is fought for ownership. Instead of fighting for inclusion, fight for ownership. So, for example, the NFL right now, look at what's going on in the NFL, right? So the Miami Dolphins have a head coach who he said he was screwed over in a number of ways, right? So I don't know I don't want to go into the full story, but Bill Belichick actually sent him an email congratulating him. By accident, he sent it to the wrong guy, right? Mm-hmm. So there were 2 coaches being interviewed with the same name, one black, one white. Mm. They have to, not for formality, they have to now, because of a new rule, they have to interview minority candidates as well as white. Okay. Because right now there's only one black coach in the whole NFL, when more than 80% of the players are African American. Okay, so what they do is they say, okay, well, we interviewed all of our candidates, we interviewed the minority, right, and then we chose a white guy. But the rule is they have to interview, not that they have to hire. So what he did was he accidentally congratulated the guy that got the job, the white guy, before the black guy was interviewed. Mm. So that's proof that this was just a formality, right? So it's the same thing we've been dealing with over and over. Yeah. It's just this, now he's caught. And Belichick said, I'm sorry, I sent the email, the text message to the wrong person prematurely. He wrote that in a text message. So that's an example of how.
It's very interesting because talking to Reverend Hagler in the first conversation, he brought up something that kind of speaks to that, where he said that basically in this country since the beginning, white men in particular, white America, has always received affirmative action. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like in this case, the white guy that got the job got it basically through affirmative action. Mm-hmm. Would you agree or disagree? Or
exactly. So I guess this is the first part of it. So they're doing this as a formality to keep us quiet. Yeah. Right, and that usually works. Well, now we found out what they're doing. Yeah. But my thing is, we need to fight for ownership and not inclusion. So, fight for ownership. Why don't we have ownership of teams? Yeah. Okay. How come of all the billionaires, why can't they come together? Since it's such a big deal, right? Yeah. And fight for ownership instead of fighting for a coaching position or a spot under their tent. But you have to go back farther and understand what a gentleman's agreement is, right? Yeah. So, if all the owners have a gentleman's agreement and they agree not to sell off teams to African Americans, well, then you have to understand that. We're not going to have ownership and we're not going to have say, and they're only going to do enough to keep us quiet. Yeah. So at that point, you have to think and make a decision. Are we going to pursue this or are we not going to participate? Because the only way to really come together and win is to do it together. And that's the only thing that we haven't done as a culture is we haven't done anything together, right?
Well, I would say we used to. We used to do things together right after Reconstruction, right after the Civil War. And we had black communities that were thriving.
But we had no choice.
We had no choice.
We were only together.
We were only together.
We didn't have the option of, the Uncle Toms were there, but after so then what? Now the Uncle Toms are with the field labor, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we are together. But as soon as they got a shot, what happens? Yeah. One goes away.
So let me ask you this. So I don't know much about football. I try, but I'm not quite there. So I do know that over in Colorado, in Denver, there is a black man, a billionaire, who wants to buy the Denver Broncos. But I also know that the former owner of the Denver Broncos, his daughter, also wants the team. And I think there are a few other white individuals who also want the team. But the black man who's the billionaire actually has the most assets. He can actually afford to buy the team. But what I'm hearing is that it may not happen primarily because he is a black man, despite his wealth.
Well, they have an agreement. So they have a gentleman's agreement that was set years ago. Yeah. So a gentleman's agreement works like this. Okay. Me, you, your cousin, your best friend, your college fraternity brothers, and you have a group of people, right? You come together and say, hey, we're going to start this thing, and we're going to make it the biggest thing ever. We start it together, and we say, hey, here are the rules, but here's what we agree to forever, and we're not going to break this. Yeah. That's an agreement that's shaken upon, but not written, right? So if that's the agreement, then it's not going to happen.
So what do you think that needs to happen then? So how do we form protections for those black athletes in the NFL or for those individuals who want to be owners of NFL teams?
The only way we do it is we start our own organization. We have to own our own.
If we don't own it, football league?
Yeah. If we don't start our own football league and have ownership of not just the team but also the league, we have no say. Yeah, you gotta remember, like they stole this country, from people that were already here. Yeah, when you look at when you look at Mexico before the Mexican-American War, right? Yeah, Mexico basically had half of the United States.
Very true.
So they are the Native Americans. Yeah, now they're paying themselves as white, which is suicide to them, and they don't even realize it, right? Because they're trying to distance themselves from being, African American.
And that is a topic that I do want to dive into at some point, because if you look at the census, Hispanic is not considered a race; it's an ethnicity. But within that, you have to identify as either white or Afro-Latino. But like you said, a lot of Latinos are identifying as white,
which means they're then handing the country over to the people that stole it from them. And they don't realize that. Like, this is their land. Really, they should be welcomed back. This is their country, right? Yes. So they are the Native Americans. They should have privilege, but they don't realize they're giving away their privilege by saying they're white. It's like me conquering my own house. It doesn't make sense, right? Like, it didn't happen, but, because we don't want to be associated with those people, that the same people that took their land associates us as negative, we're going to side with the people who are in power, right? And it's almost like the most blind thing happening right in front of all of our faces.
So they're siding, as with some people in the black community, side with the supremacists, and they don't know it.
We're fighting. That's why, like, I have biracial children with a Spanish woman, right? So the thing I'm dealing with now is my daughter speaks Spanish, and she's around the Spanish family, and she hears them talking negatively about black people. So when I get a phone call of her crying, saying, "Daddy, they're saying this about my black baby doll. They're saying that." How do I explain that? I didn't even know this existed. I'm just now finding out I'm just now finding out that they're damn near just as racist as the white people, and I mean that. But it's from conditioning, right?
Yeah.
So if we go to a new planet, right, and we find out about orange and purple people, and all the news we get back is that the orange people are like devilish, like they're mean, they're crude, they'll steal from you, they'll rob you, they'll all we know when we go to that country is that those orange people stay the hell away from them.
Correct.
So that's the picture that the people who enslaved us painted to the world. That will rape your wives, will steal from you, will kill you. We don't do that to other cultures.
We do not. And that's the problem with the media. I see it. And this is just one reason why I am wanting to get out there that we have to take back the narrative and control the narrative when it comes to our own stories. We cannot let the media, the mainstream media, and I'm referring to the liberal media and also referring to the conservative media, dictate and tell our stories, because they're going to always tell the story from their perspective versus us. Like you're saying, we need to take control and say, hey, no, this is our history. You know, we're not demeaning those within our culture and what have you and so forth. But in order to, I think, ensure the protections of the next generation, my young nieces and nephews who are, like 8, 4, and 3, something needs to change. And I find it very interesting what you're saying about us coming together and doing our own thing. Would you say that goes back to segregation, or is that something separate?
With regard to the NFL, or just
in general,
as a community?
As a community.
Segregation? I just feel like every other community has their own thing, right? So you have a Chinatown in D.C., you have a Chinatown in New York, right? Jamaicans have their little area where they congregate. I think it's so much deeper. It's so deep that I don't even really understand where to start. And the reason is, you can start back to where we don't have a country. If we don't have a country to go to. When my mom went to Africa, she cried because she said that they said she wasn't African. So if she's not African, and then she's here in America and she's not American, how do you know who you are? Like, how do we identify? And then how do we come together to unite? So the Jewish community too. I learned more from my Jewish accountant than I learned from my own father regarding finances. And that's not him teaching me per se. It's just me being around him when he's on the phone. And it's like, dude, you bought a whole block?
And you don't know how.
I never even thought about that before. Like, you bought they're renting a helicopter to go look at blocks in D.C. to buy. And I'm like, man.
How? And so how do we as a community do that? How do we get there?
You have to know. You have to have the mentality. I think it's all about your mentality, right? So if we are always, if you can imagine money being like water, okay? And everybody gets water. Every day we get a little bit more water when we go work. But every day you have to spend water. You have to spend water to get material, right? So in order to buy coffee, you have to pour a little bit of water out. Okay? Now that water, whose garden is it in, right? So if we're always pouring water out in other cultures' gardens, we can't step back and look and say, wow, their garden is so beautiful. Look at how big it is. Look at how much land. Yeah, because we're feeding their garden every single day. We're not feeding our own. So we have to start building our own.
So where do you think it starts? Do you think it starts with learning our history, our true history, learning that, let's say in this country, that we did build this country economically, this country wouldn't be where it is had it not been for all the work that was done by those who were enslaved and the Chinese Americans who built the railroads, et cetera, et cetera? Or do you think we need to go further to look into our roots in terms of our DNA, in terms of West Africa or other parts of Africa?
I don't think it's looking back. I think it's looking forward.
Okay.
I think we have. You ever seen a woman that gets beat up by a man in a relationship and she doesn't leave?
Yes.
I mean, it's like you could look and say, well, that's, as a community, that's how we are, right? We have like Stockholm Syndrome. We can't leave our master. Like, we're steady looking back. And if we keep looking back, we can't get strength. It is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but I do think we need to look forward.
Okay.
And somehow start to plan how to get out of this. Because if we don't do it together, I don't believe it's going to happen.
So if you look forward, and what steps do we need to take? So do we need to have protections in place to move forward? Or
I think the first thing we do is we look up, we start to understand different types of businesses, different types of companies, and understand, first we have to understand money. We don't know money. No one teaches us money. Okay, so every day you spend money, where's it going? We have to understand that money, that water, you're giving it to someone else. So that money is going to someone else. Who's it going to, right?
Okay.
A good example is another example from my accountant. The first question he asks when his daughter calls says, "Hey, Daddy," she's in another state right now. "Hey, Dad, I just found a doctor or whatever. I just did this, and that."
Yeah.
The first question he asks is he Jewish? It's just asking the question, is he Jewish? Because it matters, right? So they never want to go back to where they were before. We all know about the Holocaust and how tragic that was. They don't want to do it. So that brought them together and tighter. So they don't necessarily want outsiders in their community because they understand what happens when you do that. It's very dangerous. So we have to have the same mentality and understand that, hey, we can't just blow everything we have. We can't give all of our water up. We can't just water everybody else's garden. We have to water our own. Coffee. If there's a black-owned coffee shop near my house, I'll drive the extra mile to get it. Yeah. You know, I have a clothing company that I started called Habibi, right? And the first year we were top 5 on Shopify. Second year we fell to 14%, right? And that's within our category in the same month of starting. Okay. So just to be clear. But I have a father who's probably the smartest man I know. Hands down, my dad's the smartest man I know. Who bought not only myself, but my whole family North Face hoodies for Christmas.
That's not cheap.
Yeah. But the mentality, he's not thinking that he just watered another person's family's garden. He took that money and threw it in another garden when he could have easily
invested in your organization.
He could have just, bought the sweater. Our sweaters are better anyways.
Yeah.
Like, so why not, instead of spending $70 on their sweater and giving it to another man, why not reinvest in your own family? Yeah. Because we don't have the mentality. We have to change our mentality.
Well, I think that's the key word that you say there is investing. And a lot of us don't know how to invest. A lot of us are afraid to invest, mainly because we don't know where to invest or how to invest. And so I do think you're correct in terms of, giving back to the community. So you're an entrepreneur, like I said, and you've been around the block. So what would you need to ensure that you can compete? Say you become the next Ralph Lauren, if you will, or Ralph Lauren, your preference. What would it take for you to get to that level?
Okay, so what would it take for me, as well as anyone else that comes behind me, or I need a chance to fail, right? We need opportunity to fail. We need to support each other through failure. Does that make sense? And we have to be ready, and it has to be okay to fail soon. So the sooner you start failing, the sooner you can learn and start to rebuild it, and then achieve success. Yes. Ralph Lauren filed for bankruptcy 3 times. Yeah. You know, if I file for bankruptcy and our community hears about it, I'm dead. Yeah. Whereas he gets another chance. He gets another chance. He gets another chance. He's been around for a long time.
And we don't get that second or third chance.
We don't even get the first chance. Yeah. Okay. So him to get started, what did he have? Capital. Yeah. But we can't get mad at him. How did he have capital? His ancestors had slaves for 300 years. Yeah. So if they have acres and acres of fruit and vegetables, then of course he's got a foundation. We don't have anything. We have nothing. So what we have to do is come together. It's just like a hedge fund, right? Okay. Let's say we want to buy the house next door, $500,000. Yeah. Okay, and I don't have $500,000, but I have 50. Okay. And I get 10 other people that can come up with 50. Well, now we got $500,000. If we go to the bank that's owned by another culture, and we get that 50 from each bank, then how much are we paying back over 30 years? We're not making money. So eventually we have to come together again because we don't have the resources that they have. We can't compete with the amount of money. We can't compete. It's like the elephant versus the mouse that can run around. Like we feel free, but when it comes to
No, we're not free at all. And I think that word is a misnomer, and I hate when people use the word freedom, if you will, because we're far from it as a people. We have a long way to go. So I wonder about this. I read recently that the average entrepreneur, when he or she becomes successful, is age 45. So you mentioned you don't get that first chance to fail, let alone that second or third chance to fail. Okay, you're 37. Okay, so if you had a chance to fail and maybe come back, so at age 45, you got some years to go, you will be that individual who is, okay, all right, I'm here now. Okay, so is age even a factor in terms of failing, or does it happen later for us, or should it happen sooner in terms of getting that success, or should failure come sooner in life, or does it matter in terms of when it happens?
I think so. Entrepreneurship, like a company, is like a baby. All right. Okay. So, and raising a baby is like being a parent. Okay, so you can be the smartest person in the world, but sometimes you don't know why the baby is crying, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand why. I fed him, he pooped. Why is the baby crying, right?
Yeah.
So that's like a business. Also, the baby may wake up at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand why, but you have to be up now, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So, and then you may have a smart baby, a good company, right? The company's good, everyone loves it, and it's growing. But at 5 years old, no matter how smart it is, it's probably not a good idea to give them the keys to the car, right? You still have to monitor them, right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, no one ever wants to call the baby ugly, right? That's just how it is in real life and with the analogy.
Yeah.
So business is something that you have to keep going and going. And then your second child is different than your first, right? Because you're kind of ready for it. And then your third child is different. So you may have lost a lot of time, money, energy, and effort with the first, but you get better as you do it over and over.
Yeah.
So I think with money, the way money works is if you're not taught how money works, you don't understand how to mess it up. Like you don't know how to grow it, but you also don't understand how fast you can lose it. So any entrepreneur will tell you it's up and then it's down. It's up and then it's down. So the first time you make a lot of money, you're like, man, I'm rich. You think you're rich.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we're going to eat out every day. We're going to drive wherever. We're not going to really be fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
Because you think you have so much you can burn it. But the second time, once you lose it, you're like, that hurt. Like that hurts when you look and you're like, man, I just had this. And then now I have nothing. And you're just like, I don't even understand where it went. So then you get it again and you hold it longer. And then you may lose it. And then you hold it longer. So I think over time, you just learn how to hold it longer.
Yeah.
You just get better at keeping your money for a longer period of time because you realize that small hole will sink a big ship.
Yeah.
We don't need that small hole. Get it out of here.
And you become wiser as you get older. Mm-hmm. You remind me of myself when about 2000, the year 2008, I kind of launched this small IT company that I was hoping to grow. But basically I had the idea of making the internet smaller for anyone who wants content from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having cable or having all these streaming services, and this is before streaming service became what it is now, I had the idea of a portal where you would pick and choose the content that you want at a subscription price, and what first tier, second tier, third tier, and of course the price goes up depending on the tier, and you would get the content that you want without having to search for it. So you might want 15 programs for the month of January. You might want 20 for the month of February.
During football season, you may want, I got you more.
And you can change it whenever. Yeah. And so it's more an a la carte system. And for the content provider, it would have given them more revenue because they wouldn't have to split some of those funds with the cable provider or what have you. But the problem I ran into, despite everyone loving the idea, despite getting agreements from Voice of America, getting some good feedback from Discovery Communications, getting some good feedback from WETA, which is the PBS affiliate, I could not get any venture capital from anyone. And so the business ended up closing because I did not have what I needed in terms of money, if you will.
That's the biggest thing.
So
that's the biggest hiccup. Yeah,
but we have to start from there aren't very many black-owned banks out there. I think DC just has one black-owned bank, and of course, getting funds from a Chase or from Bank of America, that's not very easy at all. Even with good credit and good history,
you have to have 2 years experience just for them to look at you.
Yeah, and so what does an entrepreneur do? What does a young black man who has the great idea, who has the proven reputation, what does he do to ensure the success of his business, to ensure the protections of his idea, to grow that business? How are we to address that? What do we need to do? Or should we be lobbying Congress or what have you? Or like you said earlier, should we try to come up with our own network? Or is it or one or the other?
That's the biggest question. Honestly, I don't know what the answer is, but I can tell you this. That's the one thing that's hurting us. We don't have capital. Because it's not just the startup money. You need overhead. You have to supply the money for overhead. So it may take you 3 years before you break even. But then once you start to make a profit, how much of that are you giving away? Yeah. How do you retain the people that you have? How do you there's so much to it, but capital and gaining capital, I don't know any other way to get it than to literally put the money up yourself and start small and then flip. That's the only way to do it. Which is very hard to do. It's hard, but listen, let me give you an example. I started in a warehouse 2 years ago. 3 years ago, right? So I got into a bad business deal. Let's just say that in DC, And what happened was my partner decided to hire his wife and his brother-in-law. Okay? Didn't tell me about it. Mind you, the guy never came on the job site ever.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about a lot of money that he gave away to them for 2 years and didn't. Anyways, I lost, but I made a bad deal, bad business deal. Yeah. So I got to eat it. That's what entrepreneurs, you got to eat it. You can waste your time, but eat it.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I refuse to go work for someone else again. Not doing that.
Yeah.
I'll just call and I'll see if the people I know in the industry have anything for me.
Yeah.
And they're like, look, man, you're not going to get in here. The owner's got the guy over here that's from West Virginia. He's got all of his cousins and uncles. You're not going to get in. So I said, you know what? I'll work in the warehouse. Let me help organize the warehouse. And then as things come along, I can help because I've already done it all.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. So when you're in the warehouse, you're in the nucleus. Everything comes in and out of the warehouse. All the project managers, the owner, the delivery guy, the superintendents, everybody, all the technicians, everybody. So they get to know you and you get to know them. You hear them complaining, man, all I want to do is go with the weekend. I just had this, just had that. Man, what are you working on? I'm building this rack, but like I'm behind. Listen, I've built racks for 8 years. I do it. I work on it for you, man. Go home. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Let me knock it out. So while I'm there, they think I'm there for 3 hours. I'm there for 13 hours. And I'm getting this shit tight as I can, right? When they come the next morning, they're like, holy shit. You did this in 3 hours? And I'm like, man, listen, don't worry about it. I was there for 13 hours, but I'm not telling them that. So what do? They go back and tell everyone, yo, Justin did this. Look at what he did. Justin did that? He's just in the warehouse. Yeah, but did you know he worked for 8 years? Yeah, he got it. So then the word spreads. Oh, I need a delivery. Hey, how much are you spending a month in delivery trucks? They're renting trucks. Yeah. All right, cool. We just got an Amazon contract. So we got an Amazon contract. I'm renting out 2 trucks anyways from Penske. I got 2 trucks sitting during the day because they go at night. Hey, what if I told you I got 2 trucks? I got a guy who owns the company. Yeah. Don't tell him I own the company. I got a guy who owns the company, and they can actually do all the deliveries for you. Yeah. Now what do? We're controlling their logistics. I'm in the warehouse, reorganizing it. I'm controlling their distribution every day, all day, and I'm saving them money, but I'm also building the racks, which is the brain for the projects. Yeah. Right? So they think I'm doing this fast. It's not. I'm just busting my ass.
And for you, it's synergy. So you're creating this network within your own self. But that's a lot that, Jonathan, Justin, a lot of people don't understand what you're saying. They don't have that kind of way of thinking. And so how do we teach someone what you know?
I think you have to understand that no one's going to give you the opportunity. You have to create it. So just like I said, you have to create it. Hey, can I just help out in the warehouse? Yeah. Yeah, you might suffer. You may not make a lot of money. You may make pennies. Yeah. But create a system, and you know what I did? I took Excel. They had stuff everywhere. I looked at the Excel spreadsheet, and I see it goes 1 through a gazillion, and then it goes A down, like alphabetically, right? So that's how we organize the warehouse. I've never been in a warehouse before. But just getting it in like a phonetic order with labels shows them how to do it and tracking it in Google Forms, which is a free app. Yeah. Like literally they're like, dude, they're guys from corporate. So all I'm saying is you create opportunity. You see a need, you fill it. You see a need, you fill it. You see a need, you fill it. 3 years later, I interviewed the operations manager for that company to come work with us. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
So that's how you how you build your opportunity and you take advantage of different situations. But when I went there, remember, they said, no, we don't have anything.
Yeah. So are you seeing other Black Americans in your world doing something similar, or are you pretty much by yourself in this building of your business? Or
I'm sure they are. The problem is it takes so much focus. That's another thing I think we lack as a community. Focus. Like focus means you're not looking at other people. You're not distracted. Distracted people distract people, right? Yeah, so like, very true. I don't, if I had 2 phones, this was my thing this year. If I had 2 phones, one phone where people call and ask for things, and another phone where people offer things. Yeah. This one would never ring. It's barely ever that someone offers a job. That hasn't happened to me yet, right? So I'm sure the entrepreneurs, or the African American entrepreneurs out there, I'm positive they're creating opportunities because you have to be that way.
Right. How do we get you guys together to build what you talked about earlier? Building this network, building this thing where we are doing this for ourselves, if you will, not so much segregation, if you will, but building something so that if you go to the bank, if you go to the guy who's building the network, the logistics, what have you, how do we do that? I mean, how do we bring you guys together so that he knows that you're there, or she knows that you're there, and you know that they're there, and eventually, at some point, we can have, say, maybe in D.C., a Black Wall Street in D.C. or a Black Wall Street in Northern Virginia, or what have you.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how you would do that. I don't know how you would go about that. But I do know that there are people out here, right? There are successful African Americans out here that are doing big things. I just wouldn't know how to get us together. I don't know many. That's the problem. Like, I know people who you call them entrepreneurs. Like, they want to be an entrepreneur, but like they don't do it, and it takes a lot of gonads, man. Like, you really. I slept with no bed. I don't have a bed. You know what I mean? Like, for 2 years, right? Yeah. But I have a company. I have 6 employees. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and they make money every day. We bring us money. So, like, are you willing to do what it takes to actually have that so that you can be the person that you needed, right?
In other words, what you're saying is get out of your comfort zone. You know, you're going to have to make some sacrifices.
Oh, if you're comfortable, you'll never win. Yeah. The hungry dog will always win. It's not the biggest. It's not the meanest. The hungry dog will fight. And the way. So here's how it is, right? This is how I look at success and I look at entrepreneurship. You have to be hungry even when you're full. Okay, because what happens is we get money. What happens? I can tell you the young kids. I tell them, okay, y'all are single because you have no money and you're not attractive to women. But when you start getting money, you're going to be more attractive. You're going to get a better car. I hope they don't, but get a better car, start living better, traveling. Yeah. And what does that do? It opens the eyes of women. So now they're not coming to work early and leaving late. Yeah. They're coming to work late and leaving early because they got 3 princesses they're trying to, support, right? Yeah, and they have to give. And what do women? I'm just using the example of my text. They need time. Yeah, they want time. They want you there, and that's it. More than the luxurious things. So what does that do? It takes away from them earning. So it's just like a domino effect that I keep seeing over and over and over again. And to get back to the original example, you have to be hungry even when you're full. Yeah. So if you
and not get distracted is what you're saying.
Yeah, like, so, for example, with the bed. If you go buy a bed and it's real comfortable, it's harder to get up in the morning than if you sleep on the floor. So if you have, can you have $50,000 in the account? Can you have $100,000 account and still sleep on the floor? Because if not, you can't beat the hungry dog. You have to stay hungry. And the only analogy I can think of is imagine you go to the buffet, but you just had dinner. Yeah. You can't eat.
But here's the thing, though. Because I do believe that there are a lot of young Black Americans out there, a lot of young African American Black men and women who want to be entrepreneurs, but they can't seem to figure out how to become an entrepreneur. Or, again, most of us don't come from a background where, I mean, you didn't come from a wealthy background, but most of us did not come from backgrounds where we have family support that can support our entrepreneurship, if you will. Mm-hmm. Okay, some of us don't want to move back home, but that may have to be an option, or we don't have the technical skills, if you will, if you want to do something in the IT area. A lot of us do not have the writing skills, and so they cannot put into writing a business plan, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, I believe that we as a community still have obstacles that other communities don't have when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I don't want to always compare ourselves to white America, but let's just compare ourselves to white America in this case. A lot of Black people don't know where to begin. Something within you was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. Maybe it was being bi-coastal at one point, or having a landscaping business at a very young age. But a lot of young folks have had the idea of landscaping. A lot of young folks have had the ideas of something in the IT, but they weren't able to make anything happen with that.
I just really want it. Does it make sense? Okay, cybersecurity. I know nothing about cyber. We just started a cyber ops company last week, right? Okay. I know nothing about cyber. But I told all the guys that we've met with, I'm going to do whatever I can to get 2 seats. My goal is 2 seats. That's it. My dad told me when I was at Turner, he said, listen, don't worry about being the CEO. Yeah. Just be the best level 1 they've ever seen. Yeah. Be the best level 1, and then when you get to level 2, be the best level 2. Yeah. My goal, get 2 seats in the government. I know that'll support me and one other admin for a year, right? So get 2 seats, and I tell everyone I know that has a cyber company, I don't want all your work. Yeah. I just want an opportunity. Teach me what you do. I just want to get 1 seat. If I tell that to 20 people and I get one, I'm happy. I tell
It's
it to 20 more and I'll keep going. I don't know. Remember, I know nothing about it, but I really want it, right?
So it goes to what I believe. One of my mottos is explore, then exploit. And it sounds like even though you didn't know anything about cybersecurity, you decided to explore that area, and now you're exploiting that area, and you're getting what you want. So I know that sounds kind of simple, but I think that kind of sums up what you're saying in terms of entrepreneurship, because you have put your hands in all types of businesses, and you've done very well with that. Okay, so but my question is, how do we get that to younger African American men and women?
I guess let's do this. Give me an example. Like, give me an example, and then I can tell you how to get there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
From starting from nothing.
So I have a young cousin down in South Carolina. He is 32 years of age, and he is a budding entrepreneur. Okay, and he has started a landscaping business, but he didn't plan it for the whole year, meaning the short season, when business kind of goes down. He also got certified to be a certified massage therapist, if you will, to do technical, clinical massages, if you will. But he put a lot of investment in that, financial investment, and he put a lot of time investing, with his education and so forth. But he still is working to build his businesses, if you will. And I'm trying to do my part in terms of giving some financial advice on how to maneuver through certain systems where I have a background. I'm a journalist, but I also have a background in business consulting, if you will. But I'm here in D.C. He's in South Carolina. Okay. He's also a young father. Okay. So how do we get him to where you are? He's getting there. His mindset is strong. He is there. But you're the success story.
What I would do is this: if he wants to have two different companies, so one with massage therapy and one with the landscaping, right? I would do grassroots. I would go from the bottom up. I would literally start at the knocking at doors thing. So Gerard and I, my brother, in college, so I played NCAA football. You can't have a job. Right, you get disqualified, but they don't say you can't own a business. Right, at the Citadel, you can't have a job, but they don't say you can't own a business.
You exploited the loophole.
Exactly. So, we needed money. Like I didn't have money. Like you can't. We didn't have money, so like you have to get money, and I'm not doing anything illegal, right? So guess what we did? We knocked on doors. And I have a bunch of teammates. They would help us mow lawns on the weekend. It got to the point where because we had to go back to school, and then we had tour-a-days where we had people calling our phone, and we just would be, I can't do it. We didn't expect it, but knocking on doors. It's humility. You have to be willing to go through that because you're dealing with basically your job is to accept rejection all day, every day. Like how good are you at listening to someone tell you, no, I don't trust you. No, you're not good enough. No, for no reason. Let me ask my wife. Nah, she doesn't want you all day, and then getting up and doing it again. And again and again.
You gotta have strong will.
Yeah, massage therapy, those are huge margins because it's basically just labor, right? It's a service. So if you can get 2 or 3 people to do that, and you get 2 or 3 salesmen to just literally knock on doors or hand out flyers, I think it would pay off very quickly to the point where you would have more of a problem having you'd have more cash flow issues than you did business issues. So now you need capital, right? You're going to go to the bank and say, hey, I have 1,000 clients. And they're all scheduled for every 30 days, which means I'm going to make $1,000, or if you're charging $30,000 every 30 days. All I need is $15,000 to support my payroll, so I have cash flow to get through it. Go to the bank, right? They're going to say, guess what? Congratulations on all your clients and your growth in your company, but until you've been in business for 2 years, we're not looking at you. And you're looking at them like, but I actually have $60,000. I just need help with the cash flow. Doesn't matter.
And that's the conundrum for young entrepreneurs, especially Black Americans. That's what they run into. That's what my young cousin ran into, and we're at a loss. And so the banks don't see what the potential is. Like you said, they see what is in the present.
There's something called a barrier to entry in business, and a barrier to entry is made to keep what some would call riffraff, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's one of the things we don't know. So now I know
Yeah.
I can help the next generation out. What do? I start what's called a shell company. I have a shell company. I give it a few contracts every year. So when I hear of this happening to another guy, I say, nah, come with me. This company has done $20,000 for the last 4 years. And all I'm doing is just running money through the company, right? You set it up to where it's legal, not illegal, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you and I work together.
Yeah.
Right, and we are starting a lemonade stand.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of buying the sugar from the grocery store,
Yeah.
buy it from my company.
Yeah.
Which is a sugar company now. That's legal. I don't have to market it if I don't want to make a profit. It could be a nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
So I can sell it right through me to you. Now it's a company. So now in 3 years, you have 2 companies, not 1 company. But we're not thinking like that, and that's the issue. So we need to, everything we get needs to funnel through black. We need to get funneled through black. It has to come through black, period. When you wake up, coffee. Clothes, coffee. Plumber, coffee. Microwave installation. Oh, is he black? Hate to say that, but is he Jewish? It matters. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then when I have an issue, I can say, hey, man, my daughter's stuck, or my son's stuck, or my mom's in a situation and she's got a flat tire. I'm all the way out in New York. Can you help me out?
Yeah.
The same guy that fixed my car and I made sure that I got him and I tipped him when he was done, he's going to say, no problem, Justin, I got you. Don't worry, where's she at?
Yeah.
And that's how we started as a community, to help each other. It's not for what you get back. It's just to do the right thing. We've never had it, so we don't.
No, we never had it, and I think that's a good place to end. So we got to work on trying to get that. We have to work on, I think, trying to build a community where we use each other for banking, for dry cleaning, for groceries, whatever, all kinds of goods and services. But we need entrepreneurs to build those businesses, and we don't have enough of those.
We don't have mentors either. We need mentors. Like there's in the mafia, they have something called a Dutch uncle, right? Okay. The Dutch uncle is someone you have that basically, if I start a business, they know my Dutch uncle is Frank.
Yeah.
They know, hey, that's Frank's guy. Don't fuck with him. If you do, you got to deal with Frank.
Yeah.
Now, Frank doesn't give you money. Frank doesn't really he's not even there, but that's just your guy.
Yeah.
We need more Dutch uncles. We don't have enough billionaire guys looking out for the little future millionaires.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying just give us money, but just saying, hey, don't go on that road. I went there. Go this way.
Yeah.
There's a secret door right here in this alley.
Mm.
These are the things we don't know about. We need to set up our own speakeasies.
Yeah.
To so that other people can't intrude them and just spread viruses. Because that's what's happening. The last thing is called ground swelling, right? So if you have a land and you've got the East Coast and you got the East Coast and you got West Coast, right? It means you have an idea to take over a country or an area. And I stand up and I yell it to you from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Well, guess what's going to happen? The people in power are going to shoot our heads off. But if I say to you, hey, at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, I need you to get 10 people. I'm going to start on the East Coast, work my way to Texas. You start on the West Coast, work your way to Texas. At 9 a.m. on Wednesday, we're going to all come up with this idea, and then we can shout it. Well, that's called ground swelling.
Yeah.
At that point, there's too many of us doing it at the same time, and they can't shoot us down. But we haven't come up with a plan. We don't have any strategy. It takes so much more than just an idea. Like you actually have to think about it, and you have to have other people committed to it.
And we don't have a thought leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need someone that can think 3-4 steps ahead. And it's just like a cop. The best cops are the ones that think like criminals. You have to think like the people who are stopping us, right? We have to think like the people who took over a country. Yeah. We have to think, why would they give us anything? They're not gonna. They're not givers. They're takers.
Yeah.
So why would they ever? The only thing they have 2 options basically with regard to reparations, like you were saying. Either wipe us all out, right? To shut up, wipe us out, kill all of us. Which who knows if they're doing that with
some do want that.
Well, who knows if they're not doing it?
Yeah.
Nobody ever come. The guy, the serial killer doesn't introduce himself as a serial killer, right?
Correct.
So these guys are painted themselves as the knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
But really, they have more blood under them than anybody else in the world.
And that's American history.
It's the world history. Everywhere they've gone in the world, they've taken over. And just, I don't want to get into like the wrong conversation per se. Yeah. But let's just say this: understand your enemy. Not your enemy, but understand who's stopping you.
Yeah.
It's not your brother and your sister. Even though you fight with them the most, that's not your enemy. There's a guy down the street watching you. You don't even know he's watching you.
Yes.
That's the problem. So that's what we need to look at. These Who knows what's happening with vaccines? I don't want to get into that, but who knows what's happening?
Yeah.
But if you're letting someone who stole a whole country, steals culture, enslaved your ancestors for more than 300 years, and didn't even say sorry,
Yes.
hasn't given you anything, you're expecting them to want to save you now? I wouldn't expect anything from them. I just think we come together, we try and build as strong as we can, because they're going to come back. It's going to happen again.
Well, I would end by saying this. W.E.B. Du Bois once said, how can you expect a country to protect those in which the country was never built to protect? So basically he said, don't expect protection from America, because America wasn't built to protect Black Americans.
No, they have two options: wipe us out or give us reparations. But they're going to say there's no number.
Yeah,
so.
The money is there. Trust me. This country has a lot of money. Well, on that note, I want to thank you all for joining myself and Justin for this lively conversation. I do hope to have you back if you're interested.
Yeah.
There's a lot more I want to ask you about and talk to you about. Thank you all for joining us on the offshoot. Definitely check us out on Twitter and on Facebook. That's www.theoffshoot.org. Thank you. Have a good one.